Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while you're at it, if you are a Facebook user, check out the Titans of Podcasts and Wrestling fan group available right now on Facebook. You can check out other podcasts, wrestling news, rumors, memes, everything you could possibly want in a fan group. Check that out now at Facebook at Titans of Podcasts and Wrestling. And if you are sick and tired of paying $60 to $100 every year for the latest and greatest wrestling game out there for your game system, stop doing that. Shoot on to Facebook and check out Wrestler Unstoppable. Fully customizable wrestlers, storylines, companies, signed contracts, get involved in feuds, headline pay-per-views, everything you can do in the world of professional wrestling, all built into a free online game at Facebook named Wrestler Unstoppable. Check that out today. And if you would like to become a Pro Wrestling Podcast family member, shoot over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. We would love to have you as a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. I want to apologize in advance. We typically try to do a Saturday night going live at 9:05 episode. That did not work out this week. I was not in town, had some important business to handle, and it was a big weekend. NXT Takeover Brooklyn 3, SummerSlam, Raw was jam-packed again tonight, so there was all kinds of things going on in the world of professional wrestling, and we want to try to cover all of those tonight in this episode, and would have gone a little earlier, but had some issues this evening and was not able to go on until now. But I do want to thank all of our loyal listeners who pay very close attention to our podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in these wee hours of the morning for the Goin Live episode. As we go throughout the show, feel free to call into our Sound Off line. The Pro Wrestling Sound Off line phone number is 267-642-1160. Give us questions, comments, feedback, anything that you would like for us to cover in the world of professional wrestling. We would be more than happy to talk about. We love to bring our listeners into the show as much as we can and make you a part of what we're doing here. So I want to get started right away. I want to remind people, if you have not already, go to frowrestling.com, the homepage of the Pro Wrestling Podcast, frowrestling.com, and cast your votes for the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. We are in the final four. We're down to the last four guys. We have our opening match of that round is Bret the Hitman Hart taking on Daniel Bryan. And then the other match in the semifinal is the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels taking on the Macho Man Randy Savage. So if you haven't cast your votes yet, please do so sooner than later. Those voting lines will be closing actually relatively soon, later this evening. So I guess I should say later this morning. It's already close to 1 o'clock my time. So make sure you get your votes in if you are planning on voting this round. You guys have done an amazing job in this tournament. I'm really looking forward to see who you put into the finals of the tournament. Should be very, very exciting. I want to get to the news right off the bat. For those who have not tuned into the Pro Wrestling Podcast before, remember, or I should let you know for the first time if you're just tuning in, anytime you're interested in finding out what it is we're going to discuss on the show, all topics are posted on our webpage, frowrestling.com. You can see if there's a topic you'd like to shoot us a question about or something you want us to delve deeper into. Also on the website, you have all of our fan voting for our polls. We have our new apparel lineup in the Fro Shop, and if you are a promoter in the greater Philadelphia area looking to book talent, we have our new page, the Indie Talent Booking page at frowrestling.com, where you can look up some of the local professional wrestlers in the area who would love to do business with you. So by all means, check that out if you get the opportunity. News-wise, before I get to NXT TakeOver and SummerSlam, I'm going to cover other news, tidbits, and rumors, and then we'll get into the big shows, because it was an amazing weekend, and there's so much to talk about. First off, Daniel Bryan. Brie Bella, his wife, was out last week talking about how Daniel Bryan will wrestle at some time in the future. He kind of cleared those things up in an interview he did himself, talking about how he has had experience with other doctors who, when they reviewed his scans, the doctors that WWE sent him to said that he had lesions on his brain, and that the doctors that he went to see, he spoke to personally, made it clear that people who were analyzing his scans were looking and comparing his scans to those of active athletes in major professional sports, and that Daniel Bryan's brain function works in just the same way as your average human beings. And he had a tough time trying to explain to the WWE doctors that he's not looking to be an NFL quarterback. He doesn't need that kind of brain functioning. We do a scripted show. We do a choreographed athletic display, and that's very different. But the WWE doctors were a group of individuals from UCLA, and they were focused on comparing his scans to those of other professional athletes, which he feels was an inaccurate approach to analyzing his scans. And so, as it turns out, he was very upfront about this. The WWE has been extraordinarily supportive of him in all of his desires to continue doing something in the world of professional wrestling, but that he feels very confident with all the information he's gotten in all of the different testing he's had done over the last 2 years, that he can still wrestle, and at a high level. Maybe not, I think there was a quote in there where he said, maybe I can't go 200 to 300 days a year anymore, but he has no problem seeing himself pull off a more part-time schedule, and I think that would be an amazing thing. And he said that he's very motivated by the fact that he has a daughter now, and he wants her to be able to see him wrestle at some point. So his contract in WWE runs out September 28th of next year, 2018. I think WWE needs to revisit the protocol they have in place for CTE scanning and determine whether or not they're going to let him wrestle again, or they're going to end up losing a talent. And that's not the kind of person you want showing up on New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, or Impact Wrestling, Lucha Underground, any of those, because you instantly give those brands an injection of life in the arm. Now, that doesn't always pan out. You know, Hulk Hogan went to Impact Wrestling also, and it didn't really do much of anything. If anything, it might have hurt the company. Rob Van Dam went there, and it didn't exactly light the world on fire. Mr. Anderson, various talents have gone there, and it hasn't always worked out, but Daniel Bryan has such an organic, natural following that I think this could be an issue if it's not something that WWE takes very seriously. I want to talk about a future feud coming in Ring of Honor. It seems very likely to happen, and that is between Cody Rhodes, the current Ring of Honor World Champion. Some people give me a hard time in the Twitter feed that I should just call him Cody. He doesn't own the Rhodes name. You know what? If you want to call him Cody all you want. I'm calling him Cody Rhodes out of respect for his father and the brand that he established as the son of the plumber man. Okay, so I don't have any issue calling him Cody Rhodes. You know who I'm talking about. That's really all that matters. I'm not promoting him or making money off of his name, so I'm not going to get sued for calling him Cody Rhodes. So back to the point. Cody Rhodes, the current Ring of Honor champion, looks like his next feud is going to be with Dalton Castle. Now, for those who pay very close attention to news and spoilers, Dalton Castle and the boys are the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team champions, but they did film for their, I believe it was night 3 of their War of the Worlds shows. They lost those 6-man tag team championships to the Bullet Club, Nick and Matt Jackson and Hangman Page. So you have a situation where now Dalton Castle is free to go for the World Championship, and I think it would be a fantastic feud for him to have. And for a very specific reason. I feel like Dalton Castle is in a lot of ways a younger version of Goldust. He has the same flamboyance, he has the same organic connection with the fans. He's just like this bizarre, just crazy character, and I think that he connects with the fans in much the same way Goldust did originally, coincidentally Cody's brother, and I think that would make for great television. In addition, the contract for Dalton Castle is set to expire in the near future, and I think that Ring of Honor would do well to push Dalton Castle into a position of high authority in the company to try to encourage him to stay with the Ring of Honor brand. Let's face it, they have lost a lot of talent recently to World Wrestling Entertainment, and this could be a situation where they lose another one of their big stars. Already rumored to be headed to WWE is Donovan Dijak. They announced today officially that Leo Rush has signed, 22 years old, signed with WWE. He'll be reporting to their NXT brand. And we'll get into a little later, some other fellows have shown up in WWE programming, all coming from Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor at some point needs to address the fact that this is a serious concern for their brand. You're going to start losing too many stars where you're not able to grow homegrown talents fast enough to sustain the level of competition that you've put on for the last 10 years when you continually lose your stars to World Wrestling Entertainment and NXT. NXT is becoming Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is becoming the old TNA Impact Wrestling, and Impact Wrestling now is becoming a house show. Like, it's strange the way things have trickled down like that, but that's kind of what we're seeing here. Speaking of WWE news a little earlier, we're going to talk about the Dancing with the Stars announcement that came out today. Nikki Bella will be going on the show. Not sure who she'll be dancing with yet, but she will be making her debut with Dancing with the Stars next season. You got to know that that's something that's going to lead to promotion of her and John Cena's wedding. It's been announced that John Cena fully expects that their wedding will be broadcast in some digital media platform. Some people originally thought that their wedding would be broadcast on the network. Others thought it would take place at WrestleMania. I hope they learned from the Macho Man and Elizabeth way back in 1992, I think it was, 93, that the wedding thing at a major pay-per-view doesn't work out so well, especially when you end the show with the wedding. So hopefully that doesn't happen in that fashion. But it'll be interesting to see how they use the partnership with Dancing with the Stars, John Cena's drawing power with WWE, and the future nuptials of these two, and spin it into some kind of broadcast. Future plans for Bobby Roode. We haven't really touched on what happened on NXT TakeOver yet, but the future plan for Bobby Roode is potentially to go to SmackDown and take the spotlight away from Baron Corbin. A lot of people have noticed that Baron Corbin has been getting a lot of heat lately. They had him lose his Money in the Bank contract on SmackDown last week in very controversial fashion. Not a lot of guys have won the Money in the Bank briefcase and not cashed it in to win the championship. And I don't know if I've said this last week. If you were watching that episode and you could see the look on Baron Corbin's face, he's getting ready to cash in his contract. He's looking over his shoulder constantly, knowing John Cena is getting up on the apron. Why he would wait until they ring the bell to go knock Cena off the apron makes no sense unless the whole thing's choreographed. He made them look bad. Follow that up with the horrible back and forth banter he's been having with different fans on Twitter, and WWE is not pleased. So all the time and energy and money spent building Baron Corbin to being a world championship contender, a believable world champion contender, has kind of gone out the window, and now it looks like Bobby Roode may be the one who benefits from that, which I have no problem with. Bobby Roode's significantly older than Baron Corbin, but he's so much more seasoned and polished, and I think he would be a perfect addition to the SmackDown roster. SmackDown is becoming the place for real wrestling action. Raw's great for all the talking, if you like that sort of thing. SmackDown is the wrestling show. It really is. And then, of course, NXT is the one that trails slightly behind. And coincidentally, there was an interview with Triple H on the morning show, or Good Morning America, or one of those shows this past week, and he spoke about, there was a question posed to him about who do you think is the biggest competitor to WWE right now, and he said, I don't know that we pay as much attention to the other companies, but the biggest competition for Raw and SmackDown is NXT. And I completely agree with him. NXT is really becoming must-see television. And the only thing that will push it even further is if they actually give it some network time. Something a lot of people, I've gotten questions and comments this week and all sorts of input on that topic. Harold from St. Louis shot me something. I have a buddy, John, out in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, who shot me some comments much to the same tune, that at some point, WWE, they have to focus their energies in a different way and in pushing these stars the right way. And it hasn't happened of late. Going to move on to some Paige news. There's been a tease that Paige is coming back for weeks now, and now one of the NXT gals has shot her a direct message on Twitter, which she replied with, "I'll see you soon." There was a whole conversation about, "Oh, I miss you," in the locker room and this kind of thing, and Paige made it very clear she's going to be back very soon. A lot of people have speculated that once she got medical clearance that she was going to be released by WWE, but it looks like that may not be the case, and I think that would be a fantastic decision to keep her on the WWE payroll and get her into this women's revolution. If I had my druthers, I've said this before, I think she should go to Raw. I think she could freshen up the Raw women's division. She'd be great to put against Nia Jax. She'd be great to put against Alexa Bliss, and I think that's something that is long overdue. And I would love to see her and Sasha Banks at some point get to square off in a legit high quality technical, masterpiece, kind of like she did, Sasha did with Charlotte last year. Global Force Wrestling. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm actually frustrated. So, just like a lot of you people listening to this podcast, I am a diehard fan of reading wrestling news sites and seeing the spoilers long ahead of time, so I know what's going on. Lucha Underground used to be the worst at this. They'd record a season 6 or 8 months ahead of time. You'd already know what was going to happen for like the better part of a year before it would hit television. Now, the thing is by the time their shows make it to TV, I forgot what was supposed to happen. That is not the case with Global Force Wrestling. Global Force Wrestling has been recording episodes down at Universal Studios. They now have recorded every episode they need all the way through October. So if I'm a smart wrestling fan, a smart mark, and I pop onto television and I see their weekly broadcast, I see anything that catches my attention, I pop right over to a wrestling news site and I find out what's happening all the way through October. Why in heaven's name would I tune into one more of their shows until the end of October? I already know what's going to happen. And a lot of their stuff is predictable to begin with. So it's not because they don't have great talent. They have fantastic talent on Global Force Wrestling. I actually did an article for the SportsJunkies101.com, the news site that I write for, about how deep the roster is over at Global Force Wrestling. And, you know, that's saying something considering so many people have left recently, but they've been bringing people back a lot recently too. And it's really to a point where I wish they would either stop recording so many episodes at once so that the spoilers don't get out so far in advance that I lose complete interest in their product. Or if you're going to book so many episodes, I shouldn't say so many episodes, so many hours of wrestling ahead of time, offer another show. Do something to use up that tape time so that we can feel like that it's more organic and it's more new. By the time we get to the end of October, every storyline that they've already recorded is going to seem like it was ancient history. So that's something I think Global Force Wrestling really needs to address, because that's becoming a consistent issue with their product. Recording so much ahead of time that I have zero interest in following any of it by the time it actually makes it to television. We're going to jump into NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3, the highlights. So I'm not going to go, blow by blow through every match. I'm going to hit the parts that were just phenomenal. Even the opening match was great. Decent back and forth action. I love the end of the match when the DIY t-shirt is thrown in the ring and throws Gargano off his game and he loses the match. But I don't really want to talk about them. I want to talk about the things that really blew my mind about this pay-per-view, or whatever you want to call it, this network show. Sanity being the team to finally defeat the Authors of Pain is huge. Absolutely huge. Loved it. The match was physical. It was brutal. It was everything you'd want from a match between Sanity and the Authors of Pain. Here's my issue. We've spent a couple months now building this match up. We get there, the Authors of Pain lose, Sanity are having their moment, and some of the biggest news in recent history, Red Dragon unites and reforms and attacks the new champion Sanity and the former champions Authors of Pain at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3. So Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly back together. It was very clear that they were thinking about doing something with a Ring of Honor stable of some sorts, so now we know what they're doing. They bring Red Dragon back together and make him an immediate force in the NXT Tag Team division. We'll get back to that a little later. Aleister Black defeats Hideo Itami. I feel like they're burying Itami because his contract is due soon, and I don't think they're going to re-sign him, which I think is a loss for them. I think that his injury issues are behind him. He's got the best years of his wrestling career still coming up in front of him, and if you allow him to go back over to Japan, you're just missing out on all the time you've invested in him. He makes a great heel. I never thought he was going to get over as a heel the way he has. Keep him. Make him something. Grow his product, his image, his character to where he's just a great heel, and he's getting close already. I really didn't want to see them beat Aleister Black yet. I feel like he needs some more time to be, I don't want to say an unstoppable, undefeated guy, but he's still got a lot of sizzle to his character, so I didn't see them having him lose anyways. But great match, back and forth either way. Asuka defeats Ember Moon in another incredibly physical match. Off the charts great match. Ember Moon looked just absolutely amazing. If for some reason they move Asuka to the main roster, Ember Moon is the perfect woman to take her place in the NXT hierarchy of the women, because she looks like she could go with anybody. She's got a great look, great moveset. She performs so well in the ring. Asuka gets the win, puts on the submission hold at the end of the match. But the big story coming out of this match, broke earlier today, is that Asuka broke her shoulder in the match. She broke her clavicle in the match, so she's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. It'll be curious to see with NXT tapings coming up shortly what they do to cover her situation. She's the longest reigning women's champion in WWE history. I know they don't want to end that streak anytime soon, but they may have their hand forced if they can't find a way to get her onto those tapings and keep her character relevant while she's on the mend. The big news coming out of the show, first off, Drew McIntyre defeats Bobby Roode for the NXT Championship. Great moment for Drew McIntyre. It clears the way for Bobby Roode to make his way to the main roster. McIntyre, who's been through so much in the last several years, whether it's his initial run with WWE, getting let go, going out into the independents, really showcasing his talent, Impact Wrestling, all over Europe and in the independents through Evolve and places like that, and then coming back to NXT and establishing himself as a main draw. Congratulations to Drew McIntyre, the new NXT champion, but the congratulatory celebration doesn't last long before Red Dragon comes back out to the ring and distracts Drew McIntyre while the debuting Adam Cole totally lays him out. There's a full-on beatdown in the ring, 3-on-1, and Adam Cole has aligned himself with Red Dragon in NXT, and if you're Ring of Honor, you've got to be kicking yourself right now for letting these three guys go. Three of the best that Ring of Honor has ever had to offer, all showing up on WWE programming and really making TakeOver the event that it was. Not that the matches weren't fantastic, they were. The card was stacked top to bottom, but the appearance of Red Dragon together was a huge pop from the fans, and the appearance of Adam Cole along with Red Dragon, also huge. That really, Ring of Honor is what made NXT Takeover Brooklyn 3 a success. Going to move on to SummerSlam. SummerSlam was stacked, and all the matches were solid. And I'm going to say that. I was on Twitter last night while the pay-per-view was taking place. For those who heard my previous podcast episode, I said I was not going to be in town during the SummerSlam weekend, so I wasn't going to be able to podcast an episode. But what I was able to do was pick up the matches through my computer and give some feedback on Twitter to some people. And I'll tell you right up front, I was floored by all the action. I thought everything was booked really well with the exception of one match, and I'll get to that later. But we're going to start off with the kickoff show, The Miz, Taraj, and The Miz taking on the Hardys and Jason Jordan. I thought this match went really well. You expected The Miz, Taraj, and The Miz to win. It's a little early to have Jason Jordan really get pushed above someone like The Miz and The Miz's character, who has been so over for the last year and a half. He's done such a good job. I would have had a problem with Jason Jordan going over The Miz this fast. I'm kind of glad they put the halt on the Intercontinental storyline that was projected to be showcased at SummerSlam. Instead, Jason Jordan takes the fall, and I actually think it's a good thing to build his character going forward. Neville, only a week after losing the Cruiserweight Championship, regains the Cruiserweight Championship from Akira Tozawa. Very bizarre to me, the booking and why you would take the title off him, only to have him win it back a week later on a kickoff show in what people were saying was an empty arena. Like, SummerSlam, I don't know what they were doing there, but there was like nobody in the arena for the kickoff show. Everybody was outside the stadium. So a lot of people didn't even get to see some of these matches. In the actual event kickoff, the actual first match, the Usos take on the New Day for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Usos are crowned the two-time SmackDown Tag Team Champions, defeating the New Day. I really did not expect it. I thought that when you have the New Day go a year plus undefeated with those Raw Tag Team Championships, they come to SmackDown, win them, and then they lose them in a month. It kind of craps on their Raw Tag Team Championship reign when you make it look like, you know, the luster is off the tag team. And I'm afraid that they're going to be moving towards a split of the New Day at some point, and I just feel like it hasn't run its course yet. For a little while there, it felt like it did, but it's back to feeling fun again. The New Day feels, I don't want to say fresh, but they definitely feel more lively than they had for a few months, and I'm not quite ready to see them split up as a tag team. John Cena defeats Baron Corbin clean in their matchup. Horrible decision long-term, if you ask me. John Cena now has been putting tons of people over. It would not have hurt him to put Baron Corbin over, but this clearly sends the message. Corbin's push has been completely halted for a variety of reasons, a litany of reasons. He took to Twitter today, was complaining about the fans that are ribbing him about it online, saying that they don't know 1/100th of what they're talking about, and they'll keep tuning into everything he does. No, we're not. We're tuning into WWE programming. You just happen to be there, man. I'm not trying to dump on Baron Corbin. I actually like Baron Corbin. I have an issue with him not being in the world title picture after they've pushed him so hard. And I think sometimes WWE needs to have thicker skin with whatever it is that ticks them off about different talents. You don't push a guy and spend all that money promoting him and then have him get, just steamrolled by John Cena. That's horrible business. I'm not telling you to put the World Championship on Baron Corbin right now, but you didn't have to take the briefcase away. And if you were going to, you should have put the briefcase on the line at SummerSlam. John Cena, one of the only people to cash in and not win. Baron Corbin would have had it as well. Have him put the briefcase on the line against John Cena. Have John Cena win the briefcase from Baron Corbin and go to Raw with the briefcase. Interesting scenario that could have played out there. Instead, we're just stuck wondering what's going to happen. And with John Cena moving over to Raw, it'll be curious to see what they do with the World Championship on SmackDown now, because that was the big conversation, was John Cena was going to win the SmackDown Championship, WWE Championship, heading into WrestleMania, coming out of the Royal Rumble. Obviously, that if John Cena's on Raw, that's obviously not going to happen. The SmackDown Women's Championship match, another really physical, relatively short match, but the happiest part for me about this match is actually twofold. One, Natalya wins the championship from Naomi. No offense to Naomi. For those who listen to this podcast for months, I've said it was a beautiful thing to give Naomi the championship. I thought it was long overdue. I thought she was really going to have a great run with the title, and instead, she became the backstory so many times. Lana and Tamina are a bigger story right now than Naomi. Charlotte, when she got to the brand, was a bigger story than Naomi. Charlotte and Becky Lynch is a bigger story. Becky Lynch and Chris Cyborg, that didn't even happen, were bigger stories than Naomi. So as much as I love Naomi's work, and I think she's a great ambassador for the Women's Championship, and I think she was a worthy Women's Champion, it was time to move the belt to somebody else. And Natalya has been on the brand for so long, it is incredibly overdue for her to get a decent run. Now, the concern I had right away was, here comes Carmella to cash in. That did not happen. Thankfully, Natalya gets to keep her championship at least until Tuesday at SmackDown's tapings. I don't know if anything's going to happen there. I'm not making a prediction. I'm just saying I'm thrilled that Natalya got her championship win. And if you were watching photos online, Natalya posing with Michelle McCool, the wife of The Undertaker, who was in attendance for SummerSlam. I wonder if he got involved later. We'll see. Big Cass defeats the Big Show and a greasy Enzo. So for those who did not watch the pay-per-view, this was just a bizarre match. The Big Show wrestling Big Cass. You've got Enzo in a cage above the ring. Enzo is trying the whole match to get out of the cage. He strips down to his boxer shorts and pulls out some gloves, and he pulls out some oil from inside his shorts, greases himself up, slips through the bars of the shark cage suspended above the ring, and then drops into the ring to try to help the Big Show. He eats a Bigfoot, the Big Show eats a couple of them, and the Big Show gets pinned by Big Cass. What an incredibly worthless angle to put that shark tank above the ring. Enzo should have had a more substantial role, or he should not have been involved in the match. And look, let's face it, I read online today that Enzo, apparently his reputation in the back has gotten even worse, if that's even possible. If you're just never going to push the guy because he ruffled your feathers, or he's talking about how much money he makes in wrestling and he's not being respectful of the tradition or whatever, get over it. Every time somebody says the wrong thing, I hear publicly traded company. WWE needs to do the right thing for a publicly traded company. You know what the wrong thing is for a publicly traded company? To sound like a bunch of bullies who don't like somebody exercising their free speech, and so they try to get this guy off their program and make him look like a fool. Enzo is proud of how much money he makes. He was talking about how he doesn't have to work hard to make it. He's not lying. If you got a problem with that, you shouldn't have pushed him as hard as you did. Now, I'm not telling you to make him world champion, but God, stop burying the guy. The guy brought you ratings every time he was on television for a year. You should be thankful. Anyways, I was getting on a little tangent there. I'm going to get back to SummerSlam. Randy Orton defeating Rusev with an insane RKO out of nowhere. I think I'm going to think of Randy Orton every time I hear the words out of nowhere from now on. I actually thought Rusev should have won this match. Randy Orton has done a lot in people feel like Randy Orton's old. He's in his early 30s. He's really not. He just started so young. He feels old. Rusev is a young guy. He has a substantially longer career potentially ahead of him, and he has been buried by everybody. When is Rusev going to get a legit chance to be a star again? This guy was the unstoppable Bulgarian bruiser. For like a year, he was undefeated. John Cena had to be the one to defeat him. Now he loses to everybody. The only thing I could see that could resuscitate his career, which would actually destroy it and crush somebody else at the same time, is if you put Rusev against Jinder Mahal and have Rusev win that championship. Take one jobber, make him champion, have him lose the championship to another jobber, It would just be so poetic. But at this point, Randy Orton gets a win he didn't need. Rusev doesn't get a win when he needed one really bad. And I have no idea what direction they're going with Rusev at this point. They ought to just let the guy go if they're not going to do anything of substance. He's too big to be a mid-carder, and you're not giving him any push as a main eventer. So it's just my opinion. Sasha Banks defeats Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. Great match. Sasha Banks may be the best women's wrestler in the world right now. I know Charlotte would have something to say about that, but I'm just saying Sasha Banks has wrestled with everybody. She's wrestled with Charlotte, Nia Jax, Bayley, Alexa Bliss, you name it, she's been in the ring with them, and she puts on a phenomenal performance with anyone. Charlotte usually does a pretty good job as well, but Sasha Banks has done it on all stages. Remember that she and Bayley were the first women to headline an NXT pay-per-view for the NXT Women's Championship. She's been able to headline pay-per-view with Charlotte last year, first women's Hell in a Cell, things like that. So I feel like Sasha Banks, really, she deserves to be considered probably the best female wrestler in the world right now. The Demon King version of Finn Balor makes his way to the ring and defeats the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt. And here is my thing. The match was great. We get to see Balor pick up the win. We get to see the Demon King. And here is my problem. And I actually echo the sentiments of one of my viewers who sent a comment in to me about this. Finn Balor wrestles every day of the week, 300 days a year or so. And he does the sling blade into the drop kick into the turnbuckle into the coup de grace. Like, that's how he finishes every match. We get to see the Demon King like once a year. So don't you think that he should have maybe a little different entrance, maybe a little different music, maybe a couple extra moves in his repertoire to finish his match with that makes the Demon character more unique and special than the Finn Balor character? And here's the reality, and I was talking about this tonight with a good friend of mine who's a diehard wrestling junkie. He has the same sentiment. Like, Finn Balor is never going to make it past the status he's at right now if he doesn't find something that ignites the crowd more than just his entrance. And people are going to sour on his same... Like, this is one of the things that made it so Bret Hart... Some people think Bret Hart was not the best world champion. He had the same sequence of moves for, pretty much all his matches from the minute he became a single star and all the way through the end of his career. And Finn Balor is starting to go that route, and I don't want to see that. I actually like Finn Balor quite a bit, and I would like to see Finn Balor get a more substantial push. Now, during the SummerSlam press conference, he called out Brock Lesnar. He still wants that match. I don't think he's anywhere near getting that match, but at least what's on his mind. And I think at some point he's going to get frustrated if he doesn't get a bigger role. But in order to do that, you've got to expand your horizon a little bit. Give us something special. When you're the Demon King, perform in a more magnificent and amazing way so that people get drawn into that character. Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, The Shield, reunited, defeat Sheamus and Cesaro for the Raw Tag Team Championship. If you didn't see this one coming, then you have not been watching Raw for weeks. This was the feel-good, the reunion where they do the fist pump and they got their tag team championships, and the only thing that would have been funnier is if Roman Reigns would have won the Universal title, the Shield would have captured all the world gold in one night. I actually think in the back of my mind, maybe they should have done that. It would have made for an interesting angle on Raw the next night, the fully unified Shield with all the gold. It's almost like a likening back to the 1988-89-ish Four Horsemen, where Ric Flair was the world champion and Barry Windham was the United States champion and Tully and Arn were the tag team champions. That's kind of the feel I would have gotten if they had gone that direction. AJ Styles retains the United States Championship over Kevin Owens. A little bit of controversy here as Kevin Owens went for the win, thought he got the win, but AJ Styles had gotten the shoulder up in the melee that ensues afterwards where he's arguing with Shane McMahon. AJ Styles hits a Pele kick and then the phenomenal forearm and everything else and gets the win over Kevin Owens. Hopefully this is the end of that feud and Kevin Owens can move on to the one that we really don't want to see but is going to happen, which is Kevin Owens taking on Shane McMahon. AJ Styles hopefully can move on to something more substantial for himself. I am hoping with Shinsuke Nakamura, who, by the way, in our next match, loses to Jinder Mahal in his quest for the WWE Championship. Now, here's the one match that was booked horribly, and I'm not talking about who wins. Contrary to what people may think, I would love to see Shinsuke Nakamura walk away with the WWE Championship, but the reality is, I'm actually okay with Jinder Mahal being champion, but give the guy a legitimate win for a change. I was on Twitter going crazy about this last night. Jinder Mahal has not had one clean win since he's been world champion. So I get it a few times. Like, somebody gave me a comment back and they said, oh, well, obviously you didn't watch any matches of Ric Flair back when he was NWA champion. I'll tell you something about Ric Flair and the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I watched Ric Flair get clean pinfall wins over Dusty Rhodes, over Harley Race, over Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, at Starrcade 87 against Ronnie Garvin, over Lex Luger, over Sting. I've seen him get legit clean wins. He played the heel and he played the babyface throughout his career. He had many highs, some lows, and the reality is Ric Flair is an all-time great. Jinder Mahal has not had one substantial win in his entire championship run. So you make him look like a weak champion. You make him look like crap. I don't want Jinder Mahal to lose the title. I want him to pin Shinsuke Nakamura clean. That's what I want to see. If you want me to buy into Jinder Mahal as a legitimate world champion, have him beat someone. I don't care who. Remember when he beat Sami Zayn? He had to get distraction from the Singh brothers to get him into his little finishing move. Get rid of the Singh brothers part. Just have him beat Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn wasn't even on the card last night. That's how important he is. So why don't you have him beat him? We haven't seen Dolph Ziggler in weeks. Have Mahal beat Dolph Ziggler clean. Nice, clean match. We haven't seen Mojo Rawley in forever. Have him beat Mojo Rawley clean. Forget the Singh brothers. I don't have a problem with the Singh brothers being part of Jinder Mahal's shtick. I have a problem with them always getting involved. Let Mahal get a legitimate win. I sent him a direct message on Twitter today telling him that mad respect for him as a champion, but he needs to get some clean wins, and I hope to God that the creative geniuses at WWE figure that out and let the guy look like a legitimate champion at some point, because he's obviously working hard trying to sell it, and it's just not working for me. Gotta stop giving this guy these schmaz endings. Moving on to the big match of the night. Brock Lesnar retaining the Universal Championship by defeating Samoa Joe and Braun Strowman when he pins Roman Reigns. Great match. Two reactions here. First off, Braun Strowman established himself as the guy to challenge Brock Lesnar at the next pay-per-view. That's the huge thing. The other thing is, and I am sick and tired of hearing complaints about Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns took the fall last night. He took it and he took it clean. And he took it like a man, with class. Roman Reigns deserves some mad respect for last night. Because, people always like to talk about John Cena not putting people over. Roman Reigns has put over Braun Strowman. He's put over Samoa Joe. He's put over Brock Lesnar. He has put over Finn Balor. Who do you want Roman Reigns to put over before you'll finally accept the fact that, unlike people like John Cena in the past, Roman Reigns has put everyone over? He's put over Seth Rollins. He's put over Dean Ambrose. He's put over AJ Styles. Who is left? He's lost to everyone. Bray Wyatt? Who is he supposed to lose to that he hasn't already lost to? Roman Reigns is not a spotlight hog. He does what he's told to do in his job, which is win or lose based on what Vince wants to do. If you have a problem with that, Roman Reigns isn't the one to complain about. He looks great in the ring. He performed extraordinarily well last night. Congratulations, Roman Reigns. I don't care if you won the match or not. You were a stud last night. And I shot that out to him today in a private message on Twitter as well, because I really appreciate everything he did at the pay-per-view. Brock Lesnar clearly moving on for a feud with Braun Strowman. If you tuned in this Raw tonight, you got to see that made official. Braun Strowman will challenge Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship at the next pay-per-view. It should be a fantastic opportunity. We'll finally get to see these two in the ring just one-on-one, mano-y-mano, no outside interference, no craziness, no four other guys in the ring or anything nonsense like that. This is something fans are clamoring for. We really are excited to see this. For me personally, Raw tonight was a little bit of a letdown. I love the Braun Strowman Brock Lesnar thing. I loved the John Cena Roman Reigns. So the John Cena gets in the ring and Kurt Angle introduces him as a big star coming to Raw, and Roman Reigns comes out and they're in each other's face, and it looked great. It looked organic. And then The Miz came out, and that kind of threw the whole vibe away. And Samoa Joe eventually comes out and he inserts himself in the match, which makes no sense. Samoa Joe has no history with The Miz, so why in God's name would he come out and inject himself into The Miz's match? It makes no sense whatsoever. But I'm thrilled to see Samoa Joe and John Cena, which is the rumored match for the first Raw in September after the Labor Day weekend. I think that match is something that should be saved for a pay-per-view. They've been putting a lot of pay-per-view quality matches out for free. They did it tonight on Raw. We'll get to that in a moment, but this is a feud that I think is long overdue. For those who don't know, John Cena, before he was a star, wrestled for UPW, where he also wrestled with Samoa Joe, who wrestled for UPW. They had a great feud back then. Their feud actually made it to WWE television in the dark matches you never see on television. If you look, you can find Samoa Joe in WWE long time ago. Same thing with John Cena. And they had a great feud in UPW. You can find that online on YouTube as well. And I think this is a match that diehard Smart Mark wrestling fans are actually looking forward to seeing John Cena and Samoa Joe. I think at the same time, we really would like to see this John Cena Roman Reigns thing. Contrary to what the fans were cheering, they were chanting, "You both suck," which I find completely awesome. But at some point, people will choose a side in that match, and that might be the most interesting dynamic of the match, is seeing who the fans side with between Roman Reigns and John Cena. The other tidbit from Raw tonight is the tag team champions Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins facing the Hardys in what can only be described as an incredible dream matchup. This is another one that should not have been on free television. That is a pay-per-view level match. Now, if you're trying to promote the network, I would get it. But if you haven't noticed, if you are a network subscriber, you cannot get Raw as it's happening. You have to wait until they have the replay on the network. So I don't understand giving that match away for free. That is a killer tag team match. Ambrose and Rollins pick up the nice, clean win. Great match back and forth. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the Shield now that they seem to be on the same page. And as we found out tonight on Raw, Alexa Bliss will challenge Sasha Banks next week on Raw with her rematch clause for the Raw Women's Championship. Should be a great opportunity. The only other thing I want to throw out there real quick is Jason Jordan. So his character is supposed to be a good guy. He's supposed to be a babyface. But people have been likening him to Kurt Angle when he started to turn into the heel Kurt Angle, when he acted like he was oblivious that he was being so smug. And then this week he faces Finn Balor and loses after a coup de grace. I love seeing Finn Balor anytime I can, but I don't understand the booking of this match. Are you trying to push Jason Jordan or not? Because you just buried him to The Miz and then you buried him the following night to Finn Balor. If you want Jason Jordan to be a bad guy, if you want him to be a heel, why wouldn't you have him pick up some kind of cheesy victory over Finn Balor, somebody who just defeated Bray Wyatt? He would give a great rub to Jason Jordan. It wouldn't really hurt his character at all. And then you would have put Jason Jordan in a better position to be successful. Instead, we're still left waiting, wondering what's going on with Jason Jordan's character, because I still can't figure out what he's doing. I can't figure out what the hoopla and all the excitement about Jason Jordan's whole angle with Kurt Angle is. And the word backstage is that they're kind of weaning themselves away from that storyline because it's just not getting over with the fans. So we'll have to see where that goes from there. Make sure, as I said earlier at the onset of the podcast, if you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family, shoot over to patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. Special shout out to Harold in St. Louis, our first Patreon member. Thank you, Harold, for your contribution and becoming a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family. Nothing but love for you, buddy. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next time for all the latest wrestling news, rumors, and results. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects we use throughout today's show. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and snagging the icon in the middle of the page. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all of your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. Be sure to shoot over to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking some time with us today. If you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to thesportsjunkies101.com. That's THA, thesportsjunkies101.com for the latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Until next episode, take care, everybody, and have a great night.